Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to your Four Lads Wednesday show. It is Kenny Stewart and myself, Stevie. We are going to have this is what we like to do. We spoke about a month or so ago, and we're back just for a chit chat. And I think the most relevant thing ongoing at the club at the moment is the arrival of the new chairman and the new CEO. A lot of people might think, maybe tune in and hear about referees and all that, but we feel like we covered that on Monday, and we will cover that in the coming weeks, especially in the run-up, I think, to the next Old Firm game, which is only a couple of weeks away. So this is a break maybe from that, and we'll discuss, obviously, the appointment of Fraser Thornton as new chairman and Patrick Stewart as a new CEO. Kenny, thanks for joining us. How are you today?
I'm good, mate. Thank you. Looking forward to this, actually. Might learn something because I don't know huge amounts about either of them, mate. So, yeah, delighted they're here, though.
Yeah, look, first of all, it's a positive because we've spoke for a very long time about the football club establishing a bit of normality, which we'll go on to discuss about. I've got to be honest, like Kenny, I don't know much about Fraser Thornton as chairman. What we do know from the club's own statement is that Fraser has held many senior leadership and board positions throughout his career in both private and public sector companies. He's worked in the international drinks industry for the last 30 years, vast range of experience in stakeholder engagement, spanning political, commercial and public interest groups, extensive management experience across sales, broad marketing, strategy, development and finance, raised in Glasgow, graduated from University of Stirling before qualifying as a chartered accountant. It goes on to say that he's been a member of the Scotch Whisky Association for 15 years. And John Gilligan said on behalf of the board, I'm delighted to welcome Fraser to the club as chair. He is a lifelong, excuse me, a lifelong supporter and season ticket holder, deep knowledge of the club, which together with a highly successful executive track record, impressive range of non-executive experience, makes him an excellent fit for this role. Kenny, we already know that CEO Patrick Stewart spoke yesterday on Rangers television saying that essentially the football club would be run by him on a day-to-day basis, but he would work within a framework given to him by Fraser Thornton and the board of directors. It's a positive now, in my opinion, that we have a chairman that is not an investor, and I hope that he's going to be able to chair the football club in a manner that's been, or a manner that gives more stability, certainly, than the last few years.
You would certainly hope so, mate. And he comes with a cracking CV. He comes with a wealth of experience in business. He's overseen plenty. I think he's been the CEO of the Scottish Golf or something like that as well, if I recall correctly. So he's a Rangers fan. That helps. That gives him a slight understanding. But for me, more than anything else, buddy, the two of them there, it gives us a bit of guidance and a bit of leadership that we've been sorely, and sadly lacking for a number of months now. And with all respect to the previous chairman and the previous CEO, they left us in a bit of a mess between the two of them, if we're being absolutely honest. Now, I personally feel that the last chairman, kind of almost ripped everything up and wanted to get everything his own way. And I think it's kind of proven to be a bit of a, when I say a disaster, that's maybe too harsh, but we have now got a rebuild on several levels of the football club. And for here now, the experience that both of these guys have, I'm expecting them to steer us through some choppy waters over the next year or so and get us moving in the direction that Rangers fans deserve to see their club, moving in. But the one thing I would say, mate, is that it's a big job the two of these guys are taking on. And, for the chairman, he will be the link between Patrick Stewart and the investors, I would presume. He'll be the go-between. He'll be the one that's guiding from everywhere. So welcome aboard is what I would say. You've got a job on your hands, and let's hope you can steer Rangers in the right direction, as I say, mate. That's what I'm looking for, obviously.
Yeah, and obviously Rangers announced several weeks ago Patrick Stewart as new Chief Executive Officer. Started just on Monday, 16th of December. He joined recently being interim CEO at Manchester United. Indeed, he spent 18 years, one of the club's biggest clubs in the world, gaining vast experience and knowledge at obviously Manchester United. He said yesterday in his interview he's been 25 years in football, raised in Aberdeen. Patrick graduated from the University of Glasgow, working initially as a lawyer in Scotland before joining Team Marketing, the agency responsible for UEFA club competitions 2001. He then moved to Manchester United in 2006 as General Counsel and Company Secretary and had responsibilities for all legal and regularity matters, with his role evolving to include commercial and operation matters. So he's got a massively broad ranging experience there. He then joined the board of Manchester United in 2019 with further responsibilities including negotiating player contracts and co-leading on the creation of Manchester United's professional women's team. 2022, he became an executive director of United's New York Stock Exchange listed parent, and his role grew further to include managing the club's relationships with the FA, the Premier League, and UEFA, which is key. And I'll come back to that in a wee second, Kenny. 2023, Patrick assumed the role of Chief Executive Officer and oversaw the completion of a material investment transaction, successfully integrating new shareholders and directors into the club and delivering operational stability during the period of transition, which Manchester United have kind of gone through and recently invested in. You would have seen all the headlines surrounding that. He's also been a member of various working groups within the FA, the Premier League, and European Club Association. And yeah, I mean, he has the CV. This, in my opinion, in terms of experience, in terms of an appointment Rangers are available. We went from Jim Gillespie at St Mirren, no disrespect to Jim, which was an appointment that seemed almost lazy and down the road, to a man that has a CV, has all the experience in the world. Key bits in there, Kenny. His role grew further to include managing the club's relationships with the FA, the Premier League, and UEFA. We've already seen a Patrick Stewart moment on his very first day, which we'll come to in a wee bit. But in terms of coups for Rangers, in terms of the highest level appointment, it would be naive to say that Patrick Stewart's the answer and Patrick Stewart's going to be this, that, and everything else. But it would be extremely unfair to not say that this, on paper, is a fantastic appointment for the football club. It's certainly an appointment that comes with a vast level of experience throughout many different organisations and stages of Manchester United. And yes, look, Manchester United under the Glazers and things have been questionable, but he was also there during the good times and things as well. So he has, and don't forget, Manchester United, one of the biggest football clubs turnover-wise and everything else in the world. He has massive amounts of experience, bringing that to being a CEO at Rangers Football Club. And when you think about the outcry of James Bisgrove having none at all, we went from one extreme, in my opinion, to the absolute other. This, for me, Kenny, on paper, is a very good appointment.
I totally agree, Stevie. You know, you've kind of stole my thunder a little bit. I was going to talk about Jim Gillespie and how that had, by all accounts, pretty much been agreed. And with all respect to the lad, you know, you've went from a CEO of a charity to a guy that's worked at quite, you know, if it's not the biggest club in the world, it's one of the biggest clubs in the world for nigh on 2 decades. So, and as you say there, you know, with a wealth of experience in many different aspects of the football club and their parent company as well. He's worked dealing with different organisations, which certainly Rangers is definitely a something that's going to happen. You know, as you know, yesterday he's straight to it. But you know, working with a remit here to get Rangers successful, I genuinely don't believe for a minute that we could have got much better than this. I just look at it and think, you know, you've got a guy that's, as you say, it was the interim CEO at Man U when this takeover was happening, and that is not an easy task to see through, because there'll be so many comings and goings, and you've got to keep that club ticking over. Now it's a monster club. It is genuinely a monster club, and when you are there for that amount of time, you know, you are clearly good at what you do. So again, that's what I would be saying, is that he's coming with a tremendous CV. I genuinely, as I said already there, I don't believe we could have got much better to come here, because the nature of Rangers is that we are in a small league. So when you are trying to bring somebody that can do this job, I genuinely think that the pool of talent that you're trying to fish from, if you like, is very, very difficult to get what you want and need. And again, it's just for me personally, as I say, other people might disagree with this. I just think that when you're looking at somebody that's been in football for 25 years, and worked in that amount of different roles and in so many different aspects of that business, I think we're in safe hands, Stevie. That's what I would be looking at and thinking, right, let's see where he goes. He had a couple of jobs to do yesterday, as you're going to discuss, but at the same time, look, it's good to see again that kind of stability, that kind of ambition from Rangers to go and get somebody where a couple of months ago we were talking on this podcast talking about, well, we're not sure about the ambition of driving down the M8 to get the guy from who was sitting on as vice chairman. That's not what you're looking for. So to come almost like a full 360 and go for somebody as
with a level of experience, isn't it?
Exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, that level of it is fantastic to see, Stevie.
Yeah, it's one extreme to another for me. We went from, again, this isn't a slight on Jim Gillespie at all, but the difference in experience levels are absolutely huge. What's key to me here is that Patrick Stewart from the outset is not an appointment of the boardroom who's there just to appease. And I'm not going to say he's a plant of the boardroom or anything else, but there was a suggestion that Jim Gillespie was just the pal down the road of the parks and stuff like that. Once that narrative is created, it's really difficult for any trust level to be successful. Patrick Stewart comes in with a completely clean slate from a massive club with all the experience in the world. I think that's key. Fraser Thornton. It's interesting with his years in the whiskey business and John Gilligan's years in the tenants business and alcohol, etc. I wondered if they two paths have crossed and they're well known to each other. And let's be quite honest, the chair is a figurehead role. It's a non-exec working role, as Patrick described it as yesterday, meaning that he'll be, flirting around the club in terms of his involvement, whereas Patrick Stewart is your actual day-to-day boss. A couple of key things with that is Rangers have now for several months been without somebody in Ibrox Stadium or Auchenhowie that is their day-to-day boss of the football club. That immediately brings a level of stability straight away, which is fantastic. Second of all, that lack of involvement with the boardroom, etc. Kenny, they provide, I think, the experience and stability now for the football club to normalise itself. And you asked me yesterday to discuss what their main aims and targets should be. And for my immediate thought process, the immediate aim for both of them is to stabilise and normalise this football club. And when I say normalise, I sat down with John Gilligan, and people always have a lot to say about Stevie Clifford and fan media and what they do and what they don't do, and I would never say or be as critical to the board as what I am. I sat with the board, John Gilligan, a couple of months ago, and was as critical as I am to John Gilligan with what I would say on a podcast or whatever. And on that time, I said to John Gilligan, how are you going to normalise this football club? And one of the key aspects of that, Kenny, is that we need to move away from projects taking a year too long, lack of dialogue, and sincere messages to the football club. Walter Smith statue, avoid around the sports bar, the stadium fiasco, wrong appointments throughout the club, people leaving, commercial directors going, etc., etc. Rangers need a period of stability and normalisation, and I think and hope that the appointment of both, which on paper, again, both of them, particularly Patrick Stewart, seems quite impressive for me. And we can only say that we don't have, I think it's key to say that we don't have an insight into them and how we work. And I think it's basically careful to say that we can only judge what we have in front of us. And I think that's key. But for me, Kenny, definitely normalisation and stability for this football club in the short and long term is priority.
Well, we have to get rid of this scattergun approach that's been really evident, not just with fan media, but supporters in general. I do find that a little bit odd when people sit and criticise you in particular on fan media for not saying this or that. I don't know if they read you or see your socials, or I just don't understand the criticism at times because you're not shy at coming forward, mate. So I don't really understand why you do get that. But for me, more than anything else, mate, you nailed it. It's stability. It's driving the club forward in the right direction. Because for me, to use a slight metaphor or analogy or whatever, we seem to drive forward and then take a veer left and then drive forward and take a veer right. But there's just far too many different things going on at the one time. We've seen it even last week there, the commercial manager, he's there for director, beg your pardon, he's there for a year and he's gone already. There's far too much of this. We need focus and stability and drive and ambition, and to focus on the things that matter, which I personally feel has been lost at the club over the last couple of years, partly because there has been so many comings and goings, and on just about every level and every department at the football club. There's so much has changed. When you look at 3 different chairmen in 4 years, I think it is. Different CEOs, different managing directors. It's an upheaval all the time, Stevie. So for Fraser Thornton and Patrick Stewart to come in, the first thing that they have to do is get under the bonnet, see, naturally just look under the bonnet, see everything that's in front of them, and get a plan of action between the two of them. And as you say, it'll be Patrick Stewart that works that and drives that. But along with Fraser Thornton, between the two of them, find a path where you can start to make this club domestically successful again. That has to be the main aim. I've said this a few times on different podcasts, mate, but Rangers business should be first and foremost at all times what happens on the football pitch. So between the two of them, they have to find a way of, and I know we're going to talk about this, but get the player trading model correct and helping Niels Coppin and Philip Clement to actually build that football department in the way that they see that vision. Now, I personally have seen enough, and I know this is debatable with the manager, but I've seen enough in terms of the signings and kind of progress with all the upheaval that the football department has suffered over the last, couple of years, to say that, if we are to progress as a football club and challenge for league titles, then you have to have all these people working in unison and, trying to travel in the right and same direction. And I just feel like at times that hasn't happened at Rangers over the last 3 years. So it is that time, and time will tell whether they are the right people for the job. But I am confident with the experience that they both have that they can do that. But it is about helping the football department, and everything else will come naturally behind it. Finance becomes much easier to get, and and all these kind of things, mate. That's what I would think, is that working together.
Yeah, I think that when I talk about normality, I think that what needs to happen is that when you think about Rangers as a football club, Karim Varane as head of commercial, etc. Karim Varane was working from London, was at Ibrox once every 2-3 weeks, and it's that level of normality that was lacking. That when you hear various stories regarding him not being there, and these little things, when the football club aren't functioning properly on the pitch, become massive things off it, and they become just another basket case problem. What I'm looking for is, and what I think now is as well with Patrick Stewart being there, is that there's no longer job for the boys type scenario when it comes to commercial manager and the new head of commercial, when it comes to putting the right academy directors in there, when it comes to mid-level management. There's lots of positions at Ibrox that need refilled. He'll go and get the best people for the job, and because of the position he's held, I'm confident that the ability of people applying is going to be higher as well. So that is an exciting thing for me. And when I talk about normalizing, the football club, that's what I talk about. Kenny's right. Obviously, mate, when you talk about player trading model, the new chairman, new CEO has to roll that out now. And it's time for the shareholders as well to take a backseat, which we'll come to in a wee bit. January transfer windows, there needs to be a level of stability, whereas for the next 3-4 years, we know exactly what's coming in these windows, and exactly where we are as a football club. And we need to build for the future for the football club as well. And by what I mean by that is by being quietly efficient. We don't need to be shouting and aggressively overly communicative of what we're doing. I like that James Bisgrove was so very outgoing and so very fan approachable. I didn't like that his previous incumbent, Stuart Robertson, without criticism of Stuart, I don't want to make it a personal thing, but he was completely non-verbal to the support. There needs to be a level in between, I think, where Patrick Stewart is, where we know where he is, but there needs to be the normality that we don't need to hear from a CEO. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk about, Kenny, just before we finish up, excuse me, folks, I've still got this cough. So, some of us have battled on, Kenny, throughout, illness, etc. Not feigning off Andrew with a sore head on Monday night, etc., because he's out in the drink on Sunday, but that's another story. One of the things that Patrick Stewart's had to deal with on day one is obviously the controversy and the fallout from Hampden on Sunday. Rangers have been wronged. We're going to find out in the next couple of days that SFA are going to admit it. Willie Collum's going to admit it. They're going to apologise. It makes no difference. Rangers' approach to that situation with Sima handball in January was nuclear. It wasn't the correct way to influence people, because they suddenly went from a position of power to being ridiculed and mocked throughout, and your media, etc., had two-footed them all over the place. Patrick Stewart went in, had a very stern conversation with the SFA, and made Rangers' position absolutely clear, and made Rangers demands clear and clear of what we're expecting in the future. But there's been no public, assassination of we're not going to do this, we're not going to do that, we're not going to work with these people, etc. It's been a professional approach to it. Kenny, if we had went and two-footed everybody screaming from the rooftops, it's not going to make any difference. There needs to be a bit between dignified silence and professional approach to things. On day one, we're going to see in the next couple of days SFA's approach to it, but it certainly seems like he has delivered already a professional outlook to it on day one.
I agree, and you mentioned Stuart Robertson, and when Dave King was there, we were very quick to, there was a reason they called us Statement FC and stuff like that, mate. And there is a way of going about this. There's an approach to this that certain clubs will use, and there's certain clubs that won't use. And for me, I tend to agree with you here that I think somewhere in between. And I noticed that Patrick Stewart did say that in his interview with Rangers TV yesterday, that you'll be hands-on, you'll be very he'll be in the fan's eye, he will be visual, you will see him, you will hear from him, but to be fully aware that you'll not hear from him that much because he's got a job to do. And that's what you want to see. The approach yesterday in terms of, or Monday, asking about the incident, we've already seen at our own cost several times. It's not just the handball incident. We've seen it with the Daniel Candeas thing, and we were, down at Love Street or St Mirren Park, whatever it's called, where we fly off the handle. And every time we do this, Stevie, as you've said before, you lose a moral high ground, but you are the participant here that's in the right, and we managed to, at board level over the last few years, make a rip-roaring backside of this and lose the moral high ground, and allow the SFA to fire back with a statement that leaves us with kind of nowhere to go. This approach is far, far cleverer, it's smarter, it's much more intelligent way of going about it, by keeping it behind closed doors and basically telling them it's not acceptable and we're not taking it. We need to know that this is about to stop happening. Whereas previously, as I say, I genuinely do believe this, mate, that since Dave King was there, we have just managed to, as I say, it's literally get out a machine gun and just fire randomly at things.
We bulldozed our way through absolutely everything.
And we can't do that. It's not an approach that's ever going to work, because, as I say, I just feel personally, instantly, you lose the moral high ground. You do. You just lose it instantly, because you're firing cheeky, statements at them, making them public, and they can fire back at you saying, actually, no. And then you've got nowhere to go.
This is what I was talking about a wee bit by saying of normalising, Kenny, in terms of the football club and the way that other big teams would behave about things, and that stability. So I think that, personally, I think it all is in goes into the same bracket of just acting normally and just kind of behaving. Like, I'd like Rangers to get to a position where, it's normal for the football club to win games. It's normal for the football club to have a thriving corporate kind of background. It's normal for Rangers to have a good settled academy. It's normal for them to pay the right amounts of money for players, etc., etc., etc. And I think the more that we perhaps lost that complete leadership structure behind it, which I'm also hoping that the shareholders from this, Kenny, and I said final point, I'm going to ask you a final point. The shareholders, the likes of your Parks, your Bennett's, Alistair Johnson's boardroom and that, etc. People that have maybe, dare I say it, held on to their positions for too long and have become a target for the support. You've seen recently the criticism over Park being at Graham Park being at the AGM and basically sitting and saying absolutely nothing for 2 hours, even when he was asked questions, etc. It becomes a focal point for the support when we should be acting in a way that the boardroom and shareholders aren't a concern for us. They aren't a figure of our daily discussions. We're not having to concern ourselves with the decisions they make because they are normal, and we are acting as a football club in the way we are. That's the kind of strategy I want to see quietly developed in the next year or so. There's going to be a sports bar. We're going to work on it in the summer. It's going to take 12 weeks. So we'll start it in May and we'll finish it, and it will hopefully be open by the start of the new season. And then when the new season comes on 2 weeks before, we're on schedule, folks. We're going to be opening, grand opening on this day, as promised. Hope to see you there. Normality. That's what I'm looking for as a football club. And things like the shareholders stepping back and no longer becoming a target for the support, or not a target, but a cause for discussion and criticism, is exactly where I need to be.
Again, I couldn't agree more with you, mate. Listen, it's one of those things that, you know, we have a very insular kind of take on Rangers, but if you were to take a step out of Rangers, or being a Rangers fan, Stevie, and look at our club over a period now of, and if you're being perfectly honest about it, it goes back to about 2008, 2009. There's been so much going on at that boardroom level, that you're talking, you know, that is quite literally 15, 16 years of kind of chaos at that level. So you asking for a little bit of normality, it isn't an unusual thing, you know, and it shouldn't be an unusual thing to ask for. That's what I would say, that at a club our size, normal should be exactly that. It should be bang average, hearing very little from them, and, you know, just working behind the scenes to get your football club exactly where it goes. You know, and as I say, David Murray was very high profile. Dave King liked to be high profile. You know, Douglas Park was exactly the opposite, didn't want to do anything, didn't want to be seen, you know. So, you know, these things are, none of these things are normal. If you understand what I'm trying to say here, normal is just getting on with your job, being discreet about it, and when you need to say something, say it. When you need to be in the public eye and you need to address something, do it. But more and more and more, I'm exactly like you, mate. I am kind of bored of, you know, and you know this, you write as well. You know, I've been writing about Rangers at a boardroom level for 13, 14 years now, and you know, there's never a month goes by where you couldn't write something that you think, well, why am I dealing with this? Why can we not just talk about the football? And that has to be, as I say, I'll go back full circle to when I started. That's what should be the most important thing at this at boardroom level, is just focusing on doing things right. As you say, things like the sports bar or things like Edmiston House, all these things, the behind the scenes, Walter Smith statue, restaurants behind the scenes, do them quietly and get them done on time, and work on improving your football club and improving the team. And ultimately what we are all looking for as fans, and that's all we are as fans, is looking for domestic success, and start getting this club on an even keel where we start to win trophies on a seriously regular basis again. And that's all you can ask for, and that's all I'm looking for. Now, I don't know what you feel about that, but that's just kind of my take on it. That it's not just a short-term thing. This has been going on at Rangers for far, far too long.
No, it's absolutely correct. I hope that Fraser Thornton and Patrick Stewart bring, as I said, a level of stability where we appoint a commercial director and he stays for 5 years, where we have a stable boardroom, where we have a football club that no longer is leaking headlines and the little things become not an issue anymore. That's what I'm looking for. What I would say is I would really like to welcome Fraser Thornton and Patrick Stewart to the football club. Particularly pleased regarding the capture of Patrick Stewart as CEO. I think he comes, as we've discussed, with a tremendous resume. So with that said, Kenny, fantastic show. Really enjoyed it. I've actually learned a wee bit as well about them both. And I feel, quietly positive about them being here. We will see in the fullness of time. I think on paper they are good appointments. But as I said, in the fullness of time, we will see. It's a bit like signing a centre half from Italy who has got everything on paper that you want, but you don't really know how it's going to go, do you? But we certainly welcome them. And it's been a good chat. Kenny, thoroughly enjoyed it. Thanks for joining me, mate.
Well, if he's successful as Lorenzo Amoruso, will be fine, mate. So, thank you for having me on. I actually really enjoyed that myself, and it's taken me away for the best part of an hour from thinking about referees and VAR decisions, and so a little bit of respite from that. But enjoyed that, mate. Thank you.
And we thank you both for, on behalf of us both, for joining us. We really appreciate it. Coming up on the channel, you'll have your Friday night preview. The squad will be back, depending if Andrew's sobered up or not. Myself and Shona covered the vlog B victory, and congratulations to Davy McCallum and the team there that beat Celtic B last night by 3-2. The winner from Zach Lovelace. We have a vlog for that. You also hear from Davy McCallum and goalkeeper Mason Munn as well. So you've got them interviews there, 20-odd minute vlog there. We'll be back on Saturday as well with the match day vlog, Sunday show, and then Christmas, week and New Year week will be slightly different. With our output, we'll still be here. There's lots of games, lots of things going on. So we we hope you join us for that. That's for sure. Thanks for all the likes and follows and etc. folks, and have a good midweek, and we'll speak to you again soon.
Four Lads podcast is sponsored by Rhino Express, Clyde Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions Limited, and CSD Air Conditioning, along with Art of Gold. Thank you for listening or watching the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show.